late. We were in an executive session, and the talks were ongoing. But we're here now, so if everybody can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Pollack, you're in front of it. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bob. Chief. How are you tonight, Chief?
Very good.
8 months, 3 weeks?
8 months and a few days.
For those who don't know, the Chief is retiring in 8 months and a few days.
Or, as Chief Chudnow used to say, 3 really bad days. No, we'll stick it out. If you'd like to join with me for a word of prayer, please do so at this time. Father God, thank you once again for the opportunity for us to convene and discuss the importance and the things that are for the betterment of this community, Lord. Thank you for all those that are serving, those who have served. Lord, as we had a Veterans Golf tribute this past week, we are reminded of the contributions made of Mark Stockwell, and Lord, we pray for his family and their comfort as well, and everything they've done for this community and for our tribute. Lord, we're reminded of Nurses Week this week. We pray for all of our nurses, those from our employee health clinic, those practicing at the Oviedo Medical Center, and all these physician offices, that you grant them health and safety, Lord, and lift us up in all that you do. Amen.
Amen. Chief, I believe it's also Teachers Week, is it not? I think I heard that somewhere. All righty. With all that being said, I'll call the meeting to order this evening. It is about 6:45. We have all members of council present. At this time, our first order of business is a presentation from the Florida League of Cities. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Our pleasure. Thank you for coming down.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, I'm Mark Suddig with the Florida League of Cities. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here tonight to recognize one of your own council members for a long and distinguished service on the City Council for the City of Oviedo. If I could ask Mr. Keith Britton to join me at the podium with your permission.
Of course.
I'd like to present this resolution. Sir, how you doing? Nice to meet you and congratulations. This is a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Florida League of Cities Incorporated honoring Keith Britton for 20 years of elected service and presenting him with the John Land Years of Service Award in recognition of his unselfish commitment to municipal leadership and governance. Whereas America's municipal governments have long relied upon the unselfish leadership of their citizens for local self-government, and Florida's municipal governments share the time-honored role as the level of government closest to the people. Whereas this reliance places extraordinary responsibilities upon citizen legislators, municipal elected officials, who make significant sacrifices of their time and energies on behalf of the citizenry, often for little or no compensation, making this commitment a true labor of love. And whereas municipal leaders strive for excellence in the governance of their city, town, or village, and commit themselves to providing quality services, governing effectively, and working to improve the quality of life. Whereas the League has named its years of service recognition in honor of John Land, the mayor of Apopka between the years 1949 and 2014. So you have about 45 years to go, and you'll catch him. Someone else will be here to give you that one. But he was a leader whose dedication is unsurpassed at the national and state levels, and who modeled the way for decades of municipal leaders. Whereas several terms in office is a high compliment voters give to an official, and with these years of experience comes a strengthening of wisdom, discernment, and strong leadership skills that brings tremendous value to the municipal governments of Florida. Whereas Keith Britton has held office in the city of Oviedo for 20 years and is recognized for this achievement, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Florida League of Cities Incorporated that Keith Britton is commended for his dedication to the city of Oviedo, is hereby recognized as an outstanding public servant in Florida, adopted by the Board of Directors assembled this 18th day of August 2017, in Orlando, Florida. Susan Haney, President, Mike Suttig, Executive Director. Once again, congratulations. If you'd like to say a few words. Congratulations. This is a lapel pin for you as well. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
this
you.
is a surprise. I guess I should clarify. It's 20 years of service to the city, not elected service. I think Dominic's, you haven't surpassed that. You're very close to it, aren't you?
Very close. I'll catch you next year.
I'm very honored. This is a nice pleasant surprise for me. I'm glad I showed up tonight. I really appreciate it, and thank you, Mike, for coming.
Thank you, everyone. You just dated yourself because you were on LPA before I got there, on LPA. Yeah, he's got 1 year on me, on LPA. And then you went to that MIT thing for a while.
Yep.
But anyway, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's awesome. 20 years serving the city. That is the end of our ceremonial items. Next item up, we have the approval of the minutes for April 16, 2018. I'd love to entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second.
A motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All righty, let me just go through the few written requests I have here. Give me a moment. Okay. I have 3 requests for an item that's on the agenda later. I'll call those then. I have 1 written request for public comment, and that is from Kathy Mannion. Kathy, how are you tonight? Doing great, thank you. We just need your name and address for the record, and then you have these 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Kathy Mannion, and my address is private. The clerk
That's fine.
has
You-
my P.O. box.
That's
Okay.
Oviedo, Florida.
I would like, thank you, Mayor and Council. I would like to encourage each of you to continue to support the rural boundary that the Seminole County citizens voted for in 2004. Please encourage the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners to vote against moving the rural boundary to allow for the development of River Cross, as you did for the Orange County Board of County Commissioners when their rural boundary was requested to be changed. The commissioners are elected to carry out the vote of the people, and approving this change would violate the will of the voters. If the boundary needs to be changed, it needs to be brought before the people for a vote and not merely the vote of the commission only. So please contact your fellow politicians.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is the end of the written request. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address council on any item that's not on the agenda this evening? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will close the public comment portion of our meeting and move on to our consent agenda, which is items 4 through 9 this evening. What is the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, I move we accept the consent agenda as submitted.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I will take, if I could, the opportunity. We have a proclamation for National Hurricane Preparedness, and at the Calno meeting last week, they gave a presentation on what the county does. We should all feel very fortunate we have a county that and municipalities that work together for hurricane preparedness. They do an outstanding job, and what I was surprised to hear is that every county employee has a role to play, which means they all have to be trained for these emergencies and how to staff shelters and whatnot. So it was very, very interesting. I've got the pamphlets here, and Brian, I'll give them to you. Maybe we can get copies for each of the council members. So that's all I had.
Great. There's also on the agenda tonight, there is a Police Week proclamation on the consent agenda that is every year on May 15th, I believe it is. Let me see which day it is. Yes, on May 15th. So to all of our police officers who go out there and protect us each and every day, we would just want to thank you for that. I will have that signed for you, Chief, and you can hang it up over at the police department. Any other comments?
There is an item on the agenda, item number 6, talking about a $50,000 consulting fee to have somebody help out with filling out our paperwork for FEMA. So for anybody in the audience who didn't catch the discussion first time around, I just want to make sure you know that all of that is recoverable from FEMA, except for 5 to 12.5%. So even though we're hiring somebody for that chunk, we do get a lot of that back. And I think that's the greatest thing ever. So I'm glad that this industry exists and that FEMA recognizes how important it is to have somebody stack our paperwork the right way.
Great. Any other comments on the consent agenda? Motion on the table is to adopt. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, we're up to item number 10. That is a public hearing. It is ordinance number 1671. Mr. Groot, would you do us the honor of reading that by title only?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Oviedo, Florida, calling for a referendum election to be held on the date of the 2018 state primary election to be held on August 28, 2018, for the purposes of proposing to the electorate of the City of Oviedo a proposal to revise the charter of the City of Oviedo, provide for revisions to Section 3.03.02, terms of office, provide for ballot language, provide for legislative and administrative findings, provide for an amendment to Section 3.03.14 of the City of Oviedo City Charter to harmonize provisions that relate to the tie elections with the provisions of controlling state law, provide for the call of a referendum election, provide for duties of the city clerk, provide for a savings provision, provide for inclusion in the City Charter of the City of Oviedo and powers and authority for the code codifier, provide for conflicts, provide for severability, provide for codification, as well as the correction of Scribner's errors, and providing for effective date of ordinance and effective date of proposed charter amendments. And that's the resolution by ordinance by title, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Groot. Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance accomplishes quite a few things. It amends the charter to change the terms of the city council members from 2 years to 4 years. It also adds language to establish term limits regarding those 4-year terms to no more than 2 consecutive 4-year terms. It provides an implementation program for establishing the 4-year terms. It provides for the ballot language that would be provided to under the August election. It says terms of office, term limits, reduction in number, and cost of city elections. And it reads, for the purpose of limiting terms of office and to reduce the cost of elections and the number of city elections, shall the Oviedo Charter be amended to change the length of terms to 4 years, commencing in 2018, with city council members being subject to term limits of 2 consecutive terms. There are 2 choices. There's yes and no. It also amends the charter to change the methodology that when there is a tie vote to bring us more in line with state statute. It schedules the referendum election for the primary election, which will be held on August the 28th, 2018. And then it also provides for the duties of the city clerk, the city attorney, and the supervisor of elections. It is recommended that the city council conduct a public hearing and adopt ordinance number 1671.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Cobb. We do appreciate it. This is a public hearing, as I mentioned earlier. I do have a few written requests. I'll take them in the order that they're placed here. And the first one is Kathy Mannion. You're just our guest speaker tonight. Just once again, name and city is fine.
Thank you again, Council and Mayor. My name is Kathy Mannion, and I live in Oviedo. Having reviewed the meeting videos of the past number of meetings to learn more about this proposed ordinance, I question the urgency of the referendum election. My understanding is that there was a misperception of whether the charter review that was due in 2015 was completed, and if it was not completed, there were a number of items that needed to be reviewed. Only 2 of those items have been selected to be presented for the ballot. My concerns are as follows. These items are significant to warrant being placed on a November ballot rather than an August ballot, which I understand and agree is not feasible in 2018. Therefore, do these items need to be placed on the ballot in 2018, or can they wait until the scheduled charter review in 2020, along with the other items mentioned in the December meeting? This would allow them to be placed on the November 2020 ballot. 2, the timing required to place them on the August ballot created time constraints, resulting in the Charter Review Commission comprised solely of the mayor and the council. I think all charter review commissions should include citizens not holding an office and ask you to reconsider waiting until the 2020 election to propose the ordinance. In regard to the wording on the ballot, bundling charter revision items does not allow the voters to decide individually the language of our charter, and I request that each item being revised be presented individually. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Mr. Groot, for clarity, is anything being bundled in this question?
No, sir. I think it's all relates to terms of office.
Okay. So it's a standalone question?
In my judgment, yes, it's a...
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. All righty. Next written request I have is from William Wales. Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. Bill Wales from Oviedo. So I wanted to talk to this a little bit. I sent you all a kind of some proposed revisions, so I have copies of that for everybody.
I got it on my electronically.
So I would actually echo Kathy's comment. From our viewpoint, it is bundled a little bit in that you have terms, term limits, and then deciding. So there are 3 different issues that are included in that. But my main point is I'd rather keep it at 2 years terms, but I do like term limits. So I think if you're going to put all those together, I think going to 4 years, the term limits are a good thing, but I think they need to kind of revise the language a little bit, since it implies that, based on what's going on there, you are allowed 2 4-year term consecutive, whether, and then it kind of, it allows for the council members, who I appreciate your long and dedicated service, allows you to extend. There's an exemption that allows you to extend and do a long time. So I think if you enact term limits, it should be subject to all the citizens, and everybody should have that ability. The way it's written, 2 4-year terms, and the way the exemption's written, those elected in 2017 could actually serve another 11 years on top of their 18 to 15 years, because the 2017 members get a 3-year term, and then they could serve 2 more 4-year terms, the way it's worded. So I added the language to say 2 4-year terms, nor 12 years cumulative service. And then I did add some exemptions. I kind of stole some language from the 22nd Amendment to say that it would be not bound for the first term for the current sitting members, and those elected in 2018. Those elected in 2016 could run in 2018, and then after that, subject to the term limits that are established in there. So if this does go forward, I would much appreciate if you guys would consider the language, and if we're going to enact term limits, which is a good thing, because right or not, incumbents always have a very high degree of favoritism in elections, and I understand that not all you. Sometimes you're unopposed, which would then limit that. But I think it would be very good to have sometimes a changeover and in leadership. And I'm not discounting anything you've done in the past, and but I'm just think it's sometimes change is good. Term limits are good, and I would like that to be considered. And if you guys would consider the wording in these what I presented to you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Last written request that I have is from Tommy Minton. You know the drill, Doctor.
I do
Wait,
know the drill.
I should write that in here. Doctor.
Thank you.
And before Tommy starts, guys, and I know I embarrass him every time he comes up here with this,
Every time.
he was just awarded his doctorate degree this past Saturday, I think you were conferred?
Friday.
I'm sorry?
Friday.
Friday. Give him a round of applause.
Yes, again. All right. So
There you
Tommy
go,
Minton.
I promise that'll be the
Last
last
time.
time I'll do that today.
Today.
All right. Yeah, the euphoria is still where it's still there, but Tommy Minton, 344 Timberwood Trail, Vito, Florida 32765. So I'm just going to reiterate more quickly this time some of the things I said the last meeting we talked about this, and I came up here. And again, to emphasize that I do believe it should go to the voters to make this decision, so I do agree with putting it as a referendum ballot. Put it out there, let them decide. It's really their city, and it should be their decision how to go. Now, personally, as I said before, I'm in favor of the 4-year terms because I feel like there's a steep learning curve, and having to just spend half a year, 2-year term trying to run for election on the next 2-year term, and it's just creating voter fatigue, around the city. We're going to see it again in a few months. You're going to see signs plastered everywhere, and every year we keep doing that over and over and over again. So it's time to kind of just stretch this thing out, let it be 4-year terms. I'm supportive of term limits. I've said that before because I feel like, basically if you can do it in 8 years, then, you haven't done it. Okay, let's move on. Even out the field. And, I think everybody in this room probably knows that I ran for this seat 2 years ago. I've publicly stated on social media I'm not running this year. And so I'm fully aware that if we stretch this to 4 years, it extends out before my next opportunity would be it. So be it. This isn't about me. It's not about any one of you 5 as an individual. It's about the city as a whole. And this is what I feel is best. But then again, it should go to the voters. And I'll do everything I can with my social media followers just to put the word out, to help it get out there just to vote. I won't make it partisan and lean my opinion one way or the other, but I will definitely help, get the voters out to the primary, and let's do this. Thanks.
Thank you. That is the end of the written requests. Is there anybody else who would like to address council on Ordinance 1671? Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and move on to the pleasure of council. Just need a motion to start discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 1671 as written, or as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I can't second it.
Steve, you second. All right, I'll second it for discussion purposes.
All right. Bob, you have the floor.
I understand the concerns that were presented here this evening. I understand the rationale behind, having a charter review committee made up of citizens that are not elected. This charter review was not a complete tear down the whole charter and look at everything. This was a specific item that came up after the last off-year election that we wanted to take a look at. It was actually brought up by another council member, and we've looked at it. We feel that this is a fair way of handling it. It also allows for term limits, which when I was running for office, and other people can attest to, that's one of the biggest things that we hear in this city all the time when it comes to elected officials is, we need term limits. So this gives 2 4-year terms and 2 term limits. That's all that's going on the ballot. It's going to the voters, and let the voters decide. As another council member always says, the voters will always get it right. So let's do it.
Thank you, Bob. Keith, Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry.
I wouldn't have seconded it, except that no one else did. This has just become a real kind of annoyance to me. I really don't have a preference to terms or term limits myself. If it becomes such a contentious issue, maybe we should just put it off and wait till 2020 and let a charter review committee look at it and come up with the language they want. I personally feel that the 4-year or 3-year terms or 4-year terms was appropriate, and I think the compromise was to attach the term limits to that, and I thought that was a fair option. But I think I've gotten a lot of pushback on whether we bundled that or not, but that seemed to me as a fair compromise. So I'm really not interested in this at this time. We can discuss it as a group, but if we want to wait another 2 years, that's fine with me too.
All righty. Councilman Henkin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before I forget, Kathy, I just want to address your concern, why August and November? Because the November ballot has 41 amendments on it, and Supervisor of Elections recommended August might be a better time. So just to address that point for you. All right, so let me just, I'm going to try to be brief so we can get going on this, but so much, and for lack of a better word, fake news has been brought onto this subject. And that's the only word that comes to mind to me. But back in December, let's just get the history straight here. Back in December, Councilwoman brought this to us. Mr. Cobb, I have a quick question for you before I go on. In your time as city manager, has any one of these four gentlemen or anybody else on council ever approached you and says, can we get 4-year terms on the ballot, or we're looking to extend our terms?
No, sir.
Okay. So let's get that out of the way. So Councilwoman brings this up, and I think with good intentions. She clearly stated on the video that she was a fan of the 2-year term. Correct?
Correct.
But hearing all the things that we've all heard through the years, how it cost us $20,000 every other year on an off year to have an election, she brought it up. I jumped on and tried to help her get where she wanted to go with this. Because I hear it all the time, and I know all of us who have run off-year elections, you have an election every year, so it was not a bad idea. But what it has morphed into is that a couple of members up here are trying to extend their terms. And, Mr. Wales brought up very clearly, a lot of us have been here a long time, and, if we want to extend our terms, we'll go out and win another election if the voters will have us back. But the way this has been portrayed on social media, and I'm getting it secondhand, that's why I don't do social media, because it's completely ridiculous. I mean, some of the stuff that people type up there, these guys are trying to get extra money and all this stuff. We don't do this for money. We do this because we love it. But what needs to be understood very clearly here, and if you all want to go back and watch the December 4th meeting, you can see the discussion at about an hour and 53 minutes in, that this idea to go to a longer term was brought up by Councilwoman Sladak. And I believe that she was trying to get us to a better place. Having said all that, as Councilman Britton just said, it has become a convoluted mess. People just making stuff up as they go along. And it's really been quite ridiculous. None of us, especially the mayor and I, whose seat would be extended. And by the way, Mr. Groot has opined, and very correctly, that in order to align us to be on a presidential and a governor's cycle, so more people would be out, that these seats would have to be moved up to an extra year in office. We didn't ask for that. I didn't even bring it up. I wasn't even thinking about it. Neither was the mayor or anybody else up here. So people need to know where this came from. This came from a well-meaning council member trying to see if we could take a look at it. And we take a look at it, and it's become a big mess. And, it's just gotten to a really bad place, and I would just encourage anybody, if you need to know something about the five of us, just pick up the phone, a call. Don't go on Facebook. Facebook to me is become a complete joke. There's so much misinformation on there, and people actually believe this stuff. But that's how it all came about. Didn't come about anybody trying to, we want more pay, we want to stay here longer. It just didn't come that way. But the idea came from Councilwoman, and I don't think she was trying to go to a bad place with it. But, that's where it came from. Didn't come from us. And Mr. Cobb just told you that in all these years here, none of us have ever asked for it. She asked us to revisit it. We revisited it, and it's become sort of a mess. So I'll just leave it at that.
Can I say one thing, Mr. Mayor? Just real quick.
Actually, I really...
Okay, no problem.
Right.
I think we're all starting to kind of be on the same page with this. Later on, I'm going to ask to amend the minutes of the December meeting, because the conversation did move so fast to 4-year terms and some other things that I got attributed as having said that. And I as you have already pointed out, I said I love 2-year terms, but I can't have my cake and eat it too. So I personally am conflicted on how do you have 2-year terms. And as Citizen Megan, I don't like term limits. And that's somehow gotten in the mix. So from my perspective, it's bundled because I don't mind 4-year terms, but I don't love term limits. So, but that's not me. That's me as council person, Megan. And I love how you do the dichotomy. Like there's Councilman Steve and then Citizen Hinkin. So as a council person, I would like to see whatever the citizens want on the ballot, vote. Let people vote. Maybe people want 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I don't know, but letting everybody discuss it seems like the right thing to do. My hesitation with where this seems to be going is just putting it off another 2 years. And I feel bad that I got on here in 2016 and didn't notice and didn't ask about whether we had reviewed the charter until 2017. So to the citizens of Oviedo, that's my bad. I'm an attorney by training, so I feel like that's kind of my niche up here is to be all technical on everybody. But I ended up reading the charter again, and before that December meeting, I don't know if you guys remember, I had nominated Bob to be chairman because I was trying to figure out how could we kind of mix things up and try to get a little different feel going and just make it more fun. But that's why I was reading the charter, and then I came across this provision about the every 5 years, mentioned it to Mr. Cobb, and anyway, here we are today. But I'd like to see us, if we don't move forward with it right now, come up with a very definitive timeline for when we're going to get a citizens committee together so we know that we're doing right by our own governing document.
I just wanted to speak to the it's becoming a mess. We had 3 individuals get up and speak to it this evening. One of them was for it, and 2 of them were kind of on the fence on it. There was a newspaper article in the Orlando Sentinel about it. A lot of the facts in there needed to be corrected. Yeah, social media, all over the place. But it's the same people all the time. I don't think it's that much of a mess. I really don't. I think that, you put it on the ballot, term limits, 4-year terms, let them decide. Just let them go. And you know what? This has been on the ballot before. The term limits are new. If this doesn't go, then I don't think the voters of Oviedo will ever change the terms or the term limits. But I just really think that we need to let it go on the ballot. I don't think it's as much of a mess as was portrayed.
Thank you, Bob. Well, having been here when this question has gone out before and seeing it fail, it disheartens me because it's really better for the city. I mean, if the 4-year terms get everybody onto the general election cycle, we eliminate these off-year elections, which, by the way, are easier elections. It gets spoken of that, folks are in favor of term limits. Well, you keep having off-year elections, and the incumbents are going to keep getting reelected because you have 2,000 people that come out. I've run in the off-year. I've run in the on-year. A general election cycle. General election cycle, you get people out. You've got to go out and earn the seat in the general election cycle. This question is about service over self. Because quite frankly, the 2-year terms are just fine. We can keep them the way they are, and we can keep laying out whenever there's an election in an off year because somebody wakes up one morning and decides that they want to go run for mayor and cost you folks $20,000, $18,000, 17, whatever it was last time, without putting any time in, without going out and trying to talk to a voter, without doing it the way it gets done when you have to run a general election cycle when you have 16,000 people coming out to vote. That's what we should be doing. It's a shame that this has turned into what it's turned into, but it's only turned into this because we have one member who is putting self over service because it's not convenient for the plans they've made. That's what this was all about. That's why you all got stirred up out there with all this misinformation about this bundling. There's no bundling going on. It's one question. 4-year terms, 2-term limits. That's how you do it. Because we're trying to fix this off-year cycle. That's what's trying to be fixed. As Councilman Henkin pointed out, yes, 2 seats would get an extra year, but that gets everybody most efficiently onto the general cycle. That's how it gets done. Somewhere along the line, someone's getting bumped. Doesn't matter when it is. Doesn't matter if you skip a year, you do this, you do the hokey pokey. Somewhere, some seat needs to get a bump to get it to line up. It's just math. Somewhere, someone's going to get either 3 and then a 2, or a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. It has to happen. So if you do it efficiently, as this question proposes, then you are no longer going to have to worry about, if it passed, an off-year election. This isn't a mess. I don't think it's a mess. I think that it got stirred up into a hornet's nest for absolutely no reason. It is the betterment of the city. I will agree with the councilwoman. Don't know if I'm necessarily a fan of term limits. I think the voters should be the decider on term limits. I've been here elected 9 times by the voters. I'm very humbled by that. I stated the last time, you know, I'm not retiring, as rumors are going around this city. I never said I was retiring. I never said I was running. I'm your mayor. That's what you elected me to do. If somebody has it in their mind that that's what's happening, well, I can't help that. So I think this should go out on the ballot. I think this is best for the city. I think it would serve the city the best. But if that's not what the board wants to do, that's fine. But if that's not what the board wants to do, after we just went all this, as Deputy Mayor Britton said, we'll see you all in 2020 with a charter review. And we'll just do it then. And to answer a question that was brought up, there was a charter review done in 2015. The charter doesn't say it has to be reviewed. All it says is the board has to decide whether it needs to be reviewed. It was decided in 2015 not to do anything. So the question was brought to us. And I think one other point I need to make to everyone who's watching at home, you can have a charter review committee. They can come up with all these great ideas, but at the end of the day, it's the 5 who sit up here who decide what goes on the ballot. The state constitution this year had 41, I think. There were 41 amendments. They bundled a whole bunch of them. They bundled a bunch, they got rid of some, and 26 questions are ending up on the ballot. You have questions bundled going on the state that pertain to vaping and something else that has nothing to do with each other. Just, that's a bundle. 4-year terms, 2-term limits, that's not a bundle. That's a question. And if you want to talk about bundling, I sat up here in 2005 where we did the most ludicrous thing that one of the members talked us into. We bundled 17 questions into one. Yeah, you all voted that down about 25 to 75, something like that. But I'm all for this. I'm with Bob Pollack, Commissioner Pollack. I think just put it out there. You all decide in August. Whatever you want to do. It's your city. You know, we sit up here, we make the decisions. You know, as the mayor, I get to sit in the center. I have the same vote as all these folks here. I don't bring things forward. I don't do all these things that everybody perceives the mayor's seat. There's no additional power, nothing in this seat, other than you spend 24/7 answering the same question over and over again on social media, and everybody sends you an email. I mean, that's the advantage of sitting in the middle. It's almost a glutton for punishment sometimes. But I would put this out on the ballot. That's just my opinion. Yes.
So this is one of these difficult ones. The mayor touched on something that I think is very important, and I'm going to apologize to my colleague to the right if I'm wrong about this. What doesn't sit with me right about this is he called it self-serving, and I believe that was the case, because back in December, There was no conversation, oh, well, you guys are going to get an extra term. Here's what I think happened. I think that was brought up. There was no opponent at the time. Now a very formidable opponent has come out to run for that seat. And it doesn't fit now. Doesn't fit now. And she has now changed to run to another seat. So I respectfully, for two people I respect like family, disagree. It is a mess. And I'm not going to support this because I think it didn't come from the heart. If we did get a group of citizens together and they told us to do it, then I would do it. Sometimes you vote for things you don't like. But this whole thing, in my opinion, having watched it now for 5 months, was not done with the best of intentions. I think it was done for a self-serving way, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but that's the way I see it, and I think that's the way a lot of other people see it, especially when I get called all the time because I'm not on social media. You know, everybody's saying, you want to do this. I'm like, I never even brought it up. So however this vote goes on, I'm going to be on the same page with her, but let the record stand straight that we're on two different pages because she wants it for the wrong reason. And it's almost at the point now where I don't see a choice than to let someone else take a look at this and give it to us that we're not doing it. But I disagree. It is a mess, and I'm not willing to go there. I have to say this is really one of the hardest decisions because I see both my colleagues, the mayor and Councilman Pollack, I see exactly where they're going. Let the voters do it. And there's a part of me that really would like to see what they would do, but not the way it was proposed. It was proposed with bad intentions, in my view, because in December, all the things we're seeing on social media were not even spoken until she got an opponent. That is a very strong opponent. That's how I feel. And if I'm wrong, I'll sit back and listen to it. That's fine. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Because that's what everybody else thinks. I am tired of the crap that goes on social media and names dropping and things being said that are not said. It's almost like watching the news every night. You know what I mean? It's like people just make stuff up and we're all expected to just sit and take it. And I'm not taking it anymore. So, you know, if this vote, her and I are on the same side, we're not. Because I don't believe she wants what she even wanted. It was convenient then, and it's not now. So I'm sorry. That's the way I feel. But I have the utmost respect for my two colleagues who feel passionately their way and are trying to get us somewhere that we probably do need to go. But when it's brought up like this and it's made such a convoluted mess, I'm not going to be involved. If next year we get a group or the next council coming in, we have 3 seats up, and they decide to do it, there might be a different story, but sometimes it just doesn't feel right, and you got to go with your heart. So,
Okay. Deputy Mayor, anything else?
Nope.
Councilman Pollack?
Some of the hardest decisions can be some of the messiest decisions, and some of the best decisions come out of those messes. I really think we should just let the voters take it and let them decide. Just let it go, let them decide. I understand how it all evolved and everything else, but we've gotten to this point. Put it on the ballot, let them decide.
Councilwoman, we'll end with you.
Well, boy, you guys are just in fine form this evening. I do have to correct you again, Mr. Mayor. The charter says that you shall review it every 5 years. It's not may, as you have stated more than one time. Today on social media, you were opining that the way the wording was written, a person must take a 2-year break between terms to come back as the charter or as the term limits are proposed. That is not the case. I specifically asked that at the last meeting of our attorney, who explained that 1 day interrupts the term limit.
Okay, so but just stop right there, just for a second. I don't mean to interrupt. So, let's follow this twisted train of thought for a second. She's right. It is 1 day. But qualifying for November elections in August, so you would have to resign the day before qualifying, qualify, run an election, and go to the voters, oh, I just resigned my seat so I can have 2 more years or 2 more terms, and sell that to the voters. I mean, come on.
We've already discussed how the voters don't pay attention. The other issue with this, as was pointed out, is that I don't think anybody who's going to the ballot box in August would envision that 10 years after they vote for term limits, 2 people up here could still be up here. So the term limits are 10 years from now when they begin to impact a lot of people. Well, because they would they would have 1 more year, these 2 guys, plus another year that was given, plus another potentially 8 years if the voters brought them back. This is coming from a person who personally, as Citizen Megan, does not believe in term limits. So I got no problem with pretend term limits, since I don't really believe in them. But I think it would be wise if the idea, and last meeting, that's what I proposed to you guys, was like, let me help you craft this language such that it does whatever it is y'all are trying to do. If you're really trying to do term limits, and I think you're the one who brought that up, let's do term limits more similar to how it's done in the Florida Constitution. And the way that reads, and Mr. Group probably has got it memorized way better than I do, so paraphrasing, it's, if you have served more than 8 consecutive terms, your name can't even be on the ballot. And if you resign your term so you can subvert this, you count as having served the whole term. So that's a very clean way to do it, and it's just a line in the sand.
So would you like to add that and then vote for this?
If we unbundle them, yes. If we have 2 questions, one is term limits, one is 4-year terms, and if the 4-year terms are implemented, then it goes to, if we have clean term limits and 4-year terms, even the extension, if the voters go for it, I'm okay with it. But the way it's bundled together.
But it's not bundled.
Well, it is. The term limits are there just to get people to get 4-year terms.
So what happens if they vote for the term limits and the 4-year terms don't go in? You're given, so
We
now
gave
you're
them
given 4 years.
choice.
But
We
now you're
gave
given 4 years.
The voters chose it. If the voters choose it, so be it. And if the voters choose it knowing that it will cost them $20,000 and off-year cycles, and they're going to have to see signs, the voters chose it. I don't know that I don't know what they'll do on that or on term limits. But I have no problem giving them a choice right now with what I perceive as unbundled opportunities and clean term limits, which I hope we could write them fast enough to be more like the Florida Constitution.
I don't think we can change it at this point. Can we, Mr. Groot? Are we out of time?
It would really be, the word convoluted's been used tonight. I think it'd be really to pair questions and if this, not that, but if both of them, yes, if one of them, no, that gets very convoluted, and that would probably cause confusion on the ballot itself. So.
Well, if we were to move it to November, we don't have to have the second gavel drop until, I want to say it's August 28th.
Right, but the problem with running it to November is that then the 2018 seats would be running for, when people are going out to vote for those seats, they don't know if they're voting on a 2-year seat or a 4-year seat.
Well, then
by
maybe
doing
2.
So don't throw up that smoke screen, because by doing it in August, then the folks get to vote on term limits or terms, and then they know what's happening in 2018. I mean, that's the whole gist of why, when we first discussed this way back in, it was December, and then we had a workshop. We sat right there and had a workshop. We all agreed. Everyone agreed that if we were going to do this, we'd do it in the primary for that very reason. I mean, it's just so self-serving. Let's just end it.
It's not self-serving. I'm saying pull it apart, make it unbundled, and if people want 4-year terms and it involves an extension, well, then so be it.
The whole point
You get
of this,
twice as many words.
the whole point of this is to get us on the general cycles.
Then put that on there.
That is what we're trying to do.
Only with pretend term limits. You're trying to lure people in with pretend term limits.
They're not pretend.
They are.
All right, you know what, Megan, you're like a petulant child. We're done. Let's just call the vote. The motion on the table is to adopt ordinance 1671. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion fails.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So you don't really have a vote killing the ordinance yet. It has failed. The clerk might like you to just keep Section 4, which deals with tie votes. And if you want to do that and also avoid losing the cost of the advertising of this, I can tell you what to do if y'all are interested.
Okay, what was the question, Mr. Groot? I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
Just one more time. I didn't fully understand what you were asking.
Section 4, it can't be done without going on the ballot. It deals with tie votes and conforms the city to state law.
Okay.
If you want to do that, I can suggest a motion to pass the ordinance striking certain sections. If you're,
Does that have to be done tonight, or can you just, we have to re-advertise it? Is that what you're saying?
if the ordinance dies, you have to re-advertise, and the clerk's very sensitive about spending your money on advertising.
Yeah, no,
Thank you for being sensitive.
It does get expensive. All righty, so why don't we, Mr. Groot, why don't you craft it the way you'd like us to craft it?
Well, I can tell you what, if somebody would make a motion doing what I say right now, that will do it. I can tell you what the motion would be.
It has to be somebody who is on the winning side or winning side?
No, actually, this would be a motion to enact the ordinance striking certain sections, which would be a different motion.
Can somebody make that motion?
And what would be stricken would be Section 1A, Section 2, Section 3, Section 5, Section 6, Section 7A, and everything in Section 11 after the word enactment on line 2. What that does is just deals with the section on tie votes, and that's all.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
That's a complicated thing to...
Is there a second?
repeat. Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
And Lonnie, that just basically takes all the questions about the terms, the length of office. It just leaves in there for the weighted the statute to deal with the tie vote. Correct?
Absolutely. Tie votes would be handled by lot as opposed to having a runoff, which is, that was something that the clerk's been addressing for a good while now. So, but just make sure no election, no referendum about any question on any other charter amendment. Everything else would be stricken. And the only thing this would do is deal with that one charter provision about tie votes.
Okay.
Okay?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Yeah, I was going to vote against it too, just for giggles, but what the heck. All righty, Mr. Groot, you got what you need?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Moving along. We're up to item number 11. There is no first reading, so we're on number 12, resolution number 3556-18, non-ad valorem agreement with Seminole County Tax Collector. Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request to approve an agreement with the Seminole County Tax Collector, very similar to the agreement that you approved in April with the property appraiser. This is relating to the proposed streetlight district that we have been working on. It's the next step. First step was to establish the district. Then the second and third steps really are to enter into these interlocal agreements with the property appraiser and the tax collector to provide for the collection of the non-ad valorem fee. And then, of course, the next step will be to, as we move further into the process of creating the fee. We put this on the resolutions agenda because I was not clear on whether or not the tax collector would be charging us an administrative cost. And when we brought forward the property appraiser said, no, we're not going to charge you. We're still trying to get an answer out of the tax collector's office, but what we have learned, we did contact the City of Castleberry because they have the same agreement. And the City of Castleberry said that they do not charge them an administrative cost. So I would assume that we wouldn't be charged one either. But I didn't feel comfortable putting it on the consent agenda when I didn't have that answer. But this is just the next step. As I said, it's the same interlocal agreement that we adopted recently with the property appraiser. It's so that the tax collector can process the non-ad valorem streetlight fee. So it's recommended that the City Council adopt resolution number 3556-18.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. I have no requests to speak forms on this item. What's the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt resolution 3556-18.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Councilwoman, you have the floor.
Just want to make sure you guys know ahead of time, the only way I would be excited about funding this is using millage. I've not been able to reconcile any of the other methods of taxation. But that's down the road, deciding if we're funding it. That's it.
Councilmember Pollak?
I'm good.
To the left?
Mr. Cobb?
Yes.
This is not approving the actual program. This is just getting us to when and if we need it, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we've
This
covered
is
all
just-
the steps. Just
This is
another
one of the
step
steps.
to get
We
there.
still have to create the fee, and we still have to certify the tax roll.
Correct it in case we need it. Okay.
Deputy Mayor, anything? Good? All righty. Just another step in the process. All righty, so the motion is to adopt Resolution 3556-18. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, call the question. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, we're up to Resolution number 13. It's, item number 13, Resolution number 3562-18, Equipment Lease Purchase Agreement. Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for the council to approve an installment purchase agreement in the principal amount not to exceed $325,000 for the purchase of financing the purchase of 34 Scott X3 air packs. These are breathing apparatus for our firefighters with spare cylinders and masks. We call them SCBA equipment. If you remember back when we did the budget, this was one of the capital line items that was approved as part of this year's budget. This lease agreement will provide for us to it's a 5-year component with a fixed rate of 2.89%, and the lease payment will be paid solely from non-ad valorem revenues budgeted and appropriated on a semi-annual basis. The delivery date of the note will be May 10th, 2018, and the note would mature on May 10th, 2023. It's recommended that the City Council adopt Resolution number 3562-18.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. I have no written requests to speak. What is the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 3562-18.
Second.
Motion, and I think Deputy Mayor beat you by a hair. And a second, Councilman Henkin, you have the floor.
Nope, looks good. All new stuff for our firemen. That's good.
Deputy Mayor?
Looks good.
Councilwoman?
I wish we could figure out a way not to finance this, but I know it's not possible at this time. So if somebody wants to gift some money to the fire department, just throwing it out there in case somebody is watching on TV who would like to do that, that would save us a little bit. Because the actual base cost is $292, so we're adding $33,000 in our cost to finance. Gifts welcome. That's it.
Councilman Pollak?
I was a little confused by the term lease in this, and when this was written. This isn't. We're not leasing it. We're not giving them back at the end of the term, are we? No. So it's a purchase.
It's a lease purchase.
It's a purchase.
Lease purchase, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Great. All righty. So, the motion on the table is to adopt. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, we're up to item number 14, which is resolution number 3564-18. Mr. Cobb?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for the council to approve a new design for teaching devices within Oviedo on the Park. For this, you will be acting as the land use administrators for Oviedo on the Park in your role of that. The master sign agreement and plan that City Council approved for Oviedo on the Park, when it comes to attention-getting devices, it has a very definite form to it. It has to be rectangular, is what it says. And it has to be of a certain size, 45 square feet, 15 feet tall, 3 feet wide. It's very, very detailed as to what it can be. And it also, within the master sign plan, has a graphic that says this is what it will be. And it also states where it can be located and how many can be and how long it can be. Staff's been working with Mr. Kavanaugh And we've now narrowed it down. I know what your memorandum says. It talks about two issues, one being number and location, and then the other being the design. We've worked with Mr. Kavanaugh. The number and location issues are no longer. We've worked with him on that. However, he does wish to use this alternative design, which is what they call a teardrop. It's curvilinear. It's not rectangular. It's about the same size. The development agreement that approved the sign master plan says that only City Council can approve this alternative design. I do not have the authority to do it, which is why we placed this on the agenda. And so tonight, what we're asking for is to adopt resolution number 3564-18 and approve the alternative design. As I said before, Mr. Kavanaugh and staff have worked out the issues regarding location and number, so those don't need to be worried about anymore. But we do need your sign-off on the different design from what's in the master plan. Mr. Kavanaugh couldn't be here tonight, but he did tell me that he would ask that you adopt the resolution.
Okay, great, thank you. I have no written request to speak on this item, so what is the pleasure of council?
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt resolution number 3564-18.
Second.
Motion second. Councilwoman, you have the floor.
It's a beautiful teardrop, and it'll only be up for 6 months.
Councilman Pollack?
I don't have a problem with that.
All righty. To the left, anybody?
Good.
All righty. Seeing that it seems that staff and Mr. Kavanaugh have already worked this out, we have a motion on the table to adopt. All those in favor of adopting resolution number 3564-18, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, we have no discussion items. Mr. Cobb, you are up.
Thank you, Mayor. I only have one thing. I just want to confirm who's going to be participating in the Washington, D.C. trip. Councilwoman has sent us correspondence saying she's interested in going, but I wanted to make sure who else. We need to make the travel arrangements now so that we can get you up there by the 23rd, and so I wanted to just confirm who's attending, who will be participating in this trip.
Mr. Cobb, it was my recollection that at the meeting that we had, the work session, that we were going to send Mr. Kelly and the mayor. One, because send Mr. Kelly because he was a aide for Congressman Mica, so he knows the lay of the land, and send the mayor because he is for lack of a better word, the figurehead of this council. I feel like those are the two individuals that we need. We don't need to spend any additional money on anybody else going at this time.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I actually made that motion, so to speak, and I think that should be the direction. I mean, I do agree. Patrick really has a great sense of Washington and knows how it all works, and you, Councilman Pollack, just said it perfect. I think it should just be you two, and we save everybody else in the budget and just leave it at that. Very efficient, in and out, and we get our stuff done.
Thank you. Councilman Britton?
I really don't have an opinion on that, one way or the other, whatever the board decides.
Okey-doke.
Well, I did not say I wanted to go, but I said that if others went, I thought it was important to have a diversity of people there, and that I'd like to see for myself, as Mr. Henkin suggested at that meeting, that I go and find out for myself if it brings value to Oviedo. So if these two are going, I'm interested in also finding out what it is. That being said, I have been able to make contact with Stephanie Murphy's office and Senator Bill Nelson, and I spoke with Tommy at Marco Rubio's office today as well. All three of the local people have been extremely responsive. I was in Mr. Cobb's office this morning when I got a call back from Senator Nelson's office, and he was able to quickly get them up to speed on some of the issues that we're having with preparing our FEMA paperwork, so we can try to ward those off and not have any of the challenges that we did back in 2004. And with Matthew, I think we're still waiting on our Matthew reimbursement from last year, or is it 2 years ago now? Coming up on that. And as far as Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy, she has volunteered to come meet with all of us a week from today at 2 o'clock. And Mr. Boulware says that Oviedo on the Park, the event center, is available for that. So if any of you are interested in meeting with our congressman here in Oviedo, that's a possibility, and she's open to discussing anything that's on our minds without us spending a dime to go up there. But the senators, when I was speaking with their staff people, they both said that they saw that there was some value in going to D.C. I'm not sure what it is, and they asked us, what is on your hit list? This morning, in talking with Mr. Cobb, it sounds like, or maybe I think might have been the assistant city manager. I said, have we applied for any federal grants? So when we arrive, we will have grants that have been applied for that we can advocate on behalf of. And the answer was, well, no, we're looking at it, but we haven't applied yet. So if the grants are not applied for prior to the reservations on the planes being booked, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense from my perspective. But if the consensus of this body is it's really important for someone to go, I'd like to go and see how there is value in that if we're going under these circumstances.
Mr. Mayor? This whole situation reminds me of the term limits. Having taken this trip multiple times, and I'm just going to say this, you're not our mother. We don't need supervision when we're doing stuff, all right?
I've never suggested that.
Hold on, I have the floor. Hang on. These trips, when you go to Washington, having taken them, and you're up there advocating on behalf of the city, and by the way, the big thing we have is that FEMA owes us about $1.2 million from the hurricane stuff, so that's why we got the lobbyist book. This is the issue, I think, that we all have here. We're working on this trip. We get our script together. We get items that we want to speak to. When you're talking to a senator, like Senator Rubio, who was, he could have been your president. We cannot go off in different directions like this. We cannot call senators and congressmen and have one member of this board talking about what we want, scheduling meetings with congresswomen that I can't make it, I won't be in, never even heard about it. This is why when you do stuff like this, you all need to speak in reason. Cannot have one going off. And the mayor is very good about doing it. If he speaks to somebody, he comes in here and he tells us all, this is what I got, what do you think? But this whole trip to Washington, for me, you can just cancel it. And we'll do it after in the fall, when we have a fresh set of eyes here and people not off in different directions. Because I can tell you, this is not a game. When you go up there and you sit with staff in Washington, D.C., and walking around and asking them about all this stuff. We didn't even come up with the menu yet, and you're already giving it to them. So to me, you can go meet with them, do what you want. I think staff, you come up with the program, whatever which we were going to decide, which was FEMA and whatever else, that we were all supposed to sit down and agree on. We cannot have one going to do this. It's not productive, and it sends a message out there to people at the highest level, United States senators and congresswomen. This is what they want. When one of us speak, they all tend to think that that's what we want. We need to speak in unity when we're doing that. So for me, I would say make this trip a reschedule in the fall after we can regroup, because, again, it has got completely out of control, and I had no idea that topics are being discussed when this full body hasn't even talked. I think it's kind of a waste of time. You all do what you want. I just throwing my hands up now.
Well, we had already discussed that FEMA was an issue, so I'm not representing that anybody wants to talk about anything. I just called the local people and said, hey, how hard would it be to get a meeting with the senator between now and May 23rd in the district? And for senators, it's next to impossible.
Councilwoman? You weren't recognized, so hang on for a second. Let me see if anybody else has anything, and I'll get back to you. All right? Deputy Mayor, do you have anything to add?
No.
All right. Councilman Pollack, anything else? No. All right. My turn. That's how this works. All righty? Read your charter. The mayor seat, one of the responsibilities of the mayor seat is the ceremonial head of government and the contact with all other government agencies, not a council member. That is one thing that this seat carries that your seat does not. Going out, reaching out to all these folks, scheduling a meeting. We invited Congresswoman Murphy here twice, I believe. She declined both times to come out here and see us. After her election, we invited her to come, and then one other time we tried to get her to come. And she declined. So convenient now that she's running for re-election that she wants to come visit Oviedo. That being said, you know, we've said this 100 times. The local folks down here take care of the local issue. So, you know, if somebody can't get through the red tape, you can go to the local folks here. You want anything to happen, you got to put a name to the face with the people up in Washington. So when that local person calls, says, hey, Oviedo is calling about this, they can say, oh yeah, that they came up, whomever it may have been, who went up at the time, said hello to us. We greet them. The admin in the office, that's the person who makes stuff happen. Patrick, am I saying anything that's not right? Sorry to put you on the spot, buddy, but you were part of it. You know, it's the admin in the office who takes the call, who puts it through to the chief of staff. That's the person you got to go see. You know, you can talk to all the chiefs of staff you want, you know, and we will get to talk to them. We will get to talk to the Congress people. And just get the name to the face. That's all this is about. And, you know, I'm away. I'm up celebrating my daughter's graduation from master's program, and I get that BS Orlando Sentinel article that you called them on. I mean, come on, Megan.
I did not call anybody on that.
Yeah, well,
all the quotes from that, except for maybe the last one, were from the meeting.
Okay, no problem, Megan. I imagined it when he called me and he said, well, I just spoke to Councilwoman Sladak. I imagined that.
He did
All right.
speak to me first, and I did not know until I read the article that Patrick had single-handedly decided we were going, because looking at the meeting, the way that went down was you told Hankin, you said...
Again, we all sat right here.
Let's go look at the video, because you were putting words in my mouth, and you are misquoting things that have happened in the past.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, listen, here's the deal. You know, I feel like, being up here for 13 years, that I could go out and do stuff like that. But what I have learned, and it took me a while. Hankin in 2005 was a little bit different than Hankin in 2018.
Mayor Dominic in 2010 was a lot different.
Yes, you were. I wouldn't even think of scheduling meetings and going to talk about anything until I came to my four colleagues and said, look, you know, we're not single people like a congressman said, that we speak together, and if we lose votes, like I know there was a vote we just took here, and it's very rare that we're so far apart on that, and it was hard, you know, but this has got to stop. If we're going to do something, especially with the United States Congress, it has to be coordinated with our staff. We have one of the best in Patrick here. He knows this stuff. We can run stuff by him. It's just how you present stuff. But we can't go out there and ask questions about farms and things that might be important.
Where is this coming from?
I'm just saying, the things that are important to us. All I can say is that you didn't have the script from our staff, what we really, the five of us and our staff felt was important. So honestly, I mean, you all do what you want, but I think right now, Councilwoman, and it's fine, do what you want. She spoke to some elected officials, but I think the trip needs to be postponed until the fall when we can get our bearings on it. I would say this, if that is the direction, that we make sure that our representatives up there know that the FEMA thing is high on the list, and just let them keep working on that. You know, also, and it's probably came from the heart, but you were talking about going up there and staying with your friend. Okay, well, hold on one second. All I saw was on social media how you wanted to go up there and make sure we weren't all on vacation. Well, I can tell you what, Mr. Kelly and the mayor were going to stay in a hotel because they get picked up. These guys were not coming into some neighborhood to pick you up. It was completely off script, so everything is off script. And I'm sorry to have to keep bringing this up, but I'm not used to this up here. For all the years I'm here, even when we lost votes, we didn't go on social media and throw this one under the bus to this one. That's not how it works. If you want to do that, you do it, because, as I always say, and Councilman Pollack said this tonight, The voters are going to get it right. They judge us all when we go. And when you have conduct like this, and you're not working together, and the citizens see that the machine is not working well, it doesn't work. But if you all want to go to Washington, I mean, if I could make a motion, I would make the motion that my original one, which I thought was a good one, is Patrick and the mayor go because of his experience, and the mayor is the head of the state to go do our thing. I mean, I can't say that you can't go, but you've made it a mess. Sorry.
Well, your original motion was, you should go. If you look at the video, you
Yes.
keep saying you should go,
Yes,
you should go.
I did say that. I did say that, and that's before you called every
I
member
did
of
not call
Congress.
anybody.
Wait, you went to every member of Congress.
I have
and
not
said-
spoken to any actual
But
elected
that's- but-
officials.
but you-
I was trying to
All right,
find out
point of order, Mr.
if we
Mayor.
could meet with them.
Okay, okay.
But I like the postponing idea. There's nothing to talk with them about at this time.
That's your opinion.
What will we talk with them about? Let's talk about it now. Since I'm not allowed to talk to you behind the scenes without violating sunshine, and nobody will tell me what it is we'll be talking about,
That's what
let's
first-
discuss it here out in the open.
You know why we won't tell you? Because the first thing you'll do is go home and put it on social media or call Martin Comas. You know, the next 6 months, I can't wait until it's over. I can't wait.
So you're going to keep it a secret from the public what it is we will be paying for you and Patrick to go discuss with our federal level elected
See, there you go,
officials?
Megan, everything with you is an argument.
You told me it was a secret.
No,
If it's
I
either
said
a
it's
secret or it's
from you,
not.
I'll gladly tell them.
It is either a secret from everybody
All
or a
right,
secret
no,
from no
Mr.
one.
Mayor,
Megan,
point of order.
Megan,
This is getting out of control. We just have to decide about the trip.
We're done. You know what, Brian? Nobody's going, okay? The councilwoman has decided as our mommy that none of us should go, and it's not good for the city.
The taxpayers
Count-
win with
count-
this.
Congresswoman Murphy, call her office. We'll reschedule that for when all the members are available, and bring us some dates from her office so that the entire body can decide on that, and bring her out, and then we'll go from there.
And Brian, could you also just tell Mr. Bufalis and Mr. Davenport to please...
Actually, Jim's not there anymore.
Oh, he's not? He left?
Yeah,
Okay.
Jim's with a different boutique.
Oh, okay. Well, just let them know that, and Patrick, if you can, to just work on the FEMA stuff. If that's the direction of this body, I think that's the important one, why we got them on. I know we got the consultant, and he's doing a good job. Just tell them to keep an eye on that, and maybe we can reschedule some kind of trip in the fall when there's a fresh set of eyes and attitudes and direction and what have you.
And, Mr. Mayor, just one last thing.
All I know is the first Wednesday in November is going to be like Christmas.
One last thing.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly did not single-handedly do anything, and I just want to put that on the record right now. He didn't single-handedly do anything.
Well, maybe not, but the way it was left at the last meeting was, you said, I'll go if Hinken goes, and then Hinken said, Patrick and Dominic should go, and Dominic said, well, if you think it's an okay idea, then we'll go. And then he said, I should go too, so I slept on it, woke up and said, if at the end of the day, and this is all public record, I emailed it, if at the end of the day you decide that it adds value for the city of Oviedo for us to go to Washington, D.C., I would like to go too. Then I get a call while I'm sitting in the orthodontist from a reporter who asked me if I was going, and I said, I don't know, you've got to call one of you two to find out. So then this article comes out, and I found out, oh, we're going to Washington, D.C. So it got blown out of proportion. I didn't call anybody. They called me.
That was a lot of quotes for I don't know, you need to call them.
Yeah.
It was from the meeting. Have you reviewed the meeting to see that they were all from the meeting?
The terms of office thing, that reporter said you approached him. The terms
which
of
one?
office one.
You know, this busload...
Just to let you know.
Busload politics, Megan, doesn't work. You know, it's... I hope everybody is realizing what's happening up here. And that person wants to be your mayor. Just remember that.
In 2019, apparently.
Yeah, well, I'm not going anywhere.
I just want...
Wait, stop. And if I hear you tell one more person that, Megan...
I have not said anything, but I have said that you told me directly that you had not decided if you were running again or not at the
I
time.
told you directly that, exactly, that at one point in time, I will not be the mayor. I didn't say I was not running in 2019.
And I have not told anybody that you're not.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it at that. Mr.
Mayor,
Cobb,
can I-
we
can I
really
just
have to
close up
move
one
on.
more quick
No,
thing?
I-
I
I
just want to
really
say
gotta
one
move
thing,
on.
not over there, but in generalities, when you look at our city overall, we're really doing pretty well. Aside from all of this crap, the city is doing pretty decently overall. I mean, nothing is perfect, but you have well-meaning people up here who are doing a good job, and I will say this, and he hates when I say it, but he takes a lot of abuse. But this city has a mayor and has had a mayor for a long time who has done it better than anybody ever did, anybody ever will, and we are the better for it. Now, I don't always agree with him. He's my friend, but I will tell you, he does a great job, and the abuse that he takes is really ridiculous because it's a thankless job, and nobody does it better. The time commitment, carrying a full-time job, taking care of his mom who's sick, trying to run a business and doing all of that, and the abuse you get, it's like what you see every night with the president, whether you agree or not. Someone's always trying to tear him down. You tear the president down, the country goes down, everything. So, I just want to say that for all in all what you saw here, this is one bad night. Our city is in good shape. We just have to get over a few bumps in the road, and when we will get there. Thank you.
All righty, and Mr. Cobb, anything else?
Mayor, I just wanted to say that...
Go ahead, throw some more gasoline over there,
Actually,
Brian.
these are good things. These are good things. Saturday morning, we had our annual Arbor Day celebration. We gave out over 600 trees. I think it's close to around 630 trees.
Great.
To the public, and received a lot of well wishes from the folks that were here. It was a very very good event. And then also on Saturday evening we had Bacon, Bourbon, and Blues, and was very thankful that the first year that we didn't have rain.
That's right.
And it was very well attended. The music was wonderful. The food was out of this world.
I did get a live video sent to me while I was up in Johnson City, and
just
it looked
wanted
like
to-
the music was awesome.
Wanted to let everyone know that about those two as well. That Saturday was a very good day in Oviedo.
Good. Well, thank you, Brian. Mr. Groot, anything from you?
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Awesome. Councilmember Henkin, anything else?
No, sir.
Councilmember Sladek?
We had a fantastic National Day of Prayer on Thursday, biggest turnout yet. So thank you to everybody who came out, all those who helped pray. I see Linda out in the audience. She helped with that. And also she goes is it the first Friday of every month? There's a group who prays for our law enforcement officers. So I think that's a really cool thing that we partner in that. Well, I don't know if partnership is quite the right way. They show up and they just do it, and the city has to do nothing. So thank you for that. My iPad went off here real quick. No, that is not actually it. When I first got elected, Chief Chudnow mentioned that one of the things he would like to see done is even up the fringy edges where we had county enclaves. About a week ago, 10 days ago, I was combing through the charter, trying to find some way to maybe amend that via citizens petition, or maybe tap it on with our movement that has apparently died this evening, to see if we could bolster the rural boundary from our end. Can't be done. It was a fun exercise. But in looking through that, it reminded me I read through annexation laws and interlocal agreements and things like that, and it seems that we may be able to accomplish one of his goals from a law enforcement perspective by coming up with an interlocal agreement between us and Seminole County to go ahead and just take over law enforcement for that area. Is that something that you guys might be interested in pursuing? We don't want to address what our former chief has suggested we do. It sounds like it's an ongoing law enforcement issue to...
Coming out of the blue, we don't have no information to
Yeah.
think about.
Okay.
Put some information together so we can think about
I
it.
think you
First
might want
Wednesday in November, we'll take it up.
I think you might want to tell them the area you're talking about.
Oh, Ion, the Ion Enclave. So there's a bunch of county little fringy areas in Ion, and the drug dealers apparently go hang out in these areas. So right now, it sounds like we have a mutual aid agreement.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't we have a mutual aid agreement?
Well,
that we
mutual
would-
aid
we would
agreement doesn't seem
please-
to do as much as at least our former person in that position wanted it to do. So if there is a way to, and there is legally a way
Where
to
are
just-
these drug dens? that you're
I don't know, ask our current chief.
All right, well, Chief, why don't,
If there's a way to address the problem, seems like it makes
No,
sense.
no.
Chief.
I'm sorry, the real chief right now. The one wearing the badge, not with the badge in the pocket.
Yeah, I just didn't know that
Chief.
there was a way to solve the problem without annexation, which is almost impossible because the people have to vote themselves in, and there is, so.
Chief, can you look into the issue and get a memo out to us? And if there is some merit to what the former chief was beginning, let us know, which I'm sure there was. Just let's continue it along. A resident contacted each one of us up here about that issue, so.
And if I could, there's, don't confuse first response with mutual aid. Under a first response agreement like we have with the fire department, we're the first responder into an area. Under mutual aid, we're not necessarily the first response, but we do back up. And so there are times where our guys have to call off the chase to go into certain areas. So, but we are in coordination during the chase so that the county's sitting there waiting on them. But
Are there Duke boys involved?
But that's one thing, that there is a big difference between mutual aid and first response, which we have on the fire side.
Anything else?
I'm going to my list here. Could we amend the minutes from the December 2017 meeting just to reflect that I at no point said I was in favor of 4-year terms?
Not at this point.
Not at this point.
Well, actually, you can.
No. Any consensus? Next.
Well, I might have to call a point of order on that, or maybe not. I don't know. Well, the video speaks for itself. I think it's a very petty thing of you guys to decline to allow the amendment of the minutes.
You get a lot more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. The lesson my mother taught me when I was young.
Convening a real charter review committee, is there any consensus on doing that prior to 2020, since we are potentially behind on this? Just want to get on the record whether or not we're going to do a charter review as scheduled.
We're not talking about that tonight. We just said we'll talk about it.
Okay, so all issues, whether they are mandated by the charter with or without any repercussions, as Mr. Groot has pointed out, we are just going to delay. So if there's a potential to do an interlocal agreement that would make our community safer, is it the consensus of council that this will not be pursued until after I can no longer vote on it?
Yes.
Okay, so that at least is not, okay, excellent. So that's not off the table, because I think that the timing of something like that should float whatever the pace is. Maybe I'm here, maybe I'm not.
Councilwoman, are you done?
No, you make me want to go on forever.
No, actually you can't, because I can hit this little gavel and cut you off at any time. So if you have a point, make it.
I don't
If
think
not-
you can. I could call point of order. Are you going to seriously make me bring Robert's Rules of Order? I mean, you don't follow them as it is. And it's not conducive to a well-run meeting. The other thing that I was hoping to bring up in this atmosphere is the potential presence of glyphosate in our water. A resident brought up to me that we, in Florida, on average, when there was random sampling done, we have 166 times the legal limit in Europe for glyphosate in our water. Glyphosate is the stuff in Roundup. And it causes some, there seem to be studies that are showing that this is problematic for babies. So I had sent a note, I can't remember who I sent it to, but I haven't heard back yet, and just wanted to see if we could test for that and find out what it is so our young moms will know if they're drinking something.
In our drinking water, is that what you're suggesting?
Correct, in our drinking water.
Bobby?
Actually, Councilwoman, when you sent me the request, I did forward it on to Bobby, and so they have...
It's very technical, so I didn't expect a fast response, but I thought, well, let's just bring it up here. So
I forwarded it to our lead water plant operator, and we do check for it. It doesn't come out on our CCR because it's undetected. It's not at a limit that matters.
Well, it's not a limit that matters for this country and for DEP, but it matters in Europe. So I'd be interested to know what the number is. So is it so small that truly
It's
our
so
equipment
small
can't
that
detect it?
that's what it comes back on a report.
It really
From
does.
the lab. It says undetected.
Okay, as long as it's undetected and we're actually looking for it, that is very reassuring. So thank you. See, look at that. With problems brought up and solved all in one fell swoop. And that is it for me.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Well, I've got a few items, but I just wanted to say that, it's the purpose of these reports are really informative, but it's very difficult to get a consensus when someone comes in on their report. You brought up some questions, but they're really discussion items that need to be put on an agenda with some background, and so that we could at least have some information to discuss instead of having it thrown on us and say, is there a consensus to do something?
Well, in the past, I've been told to bring it up as a... I think the process is I say, hey, do we want to discuss it? And you guys say yes or no. And it sounds like
no, you said was there a consensus to do something?
The Deputy Mayor has the floor.
So I just want to make that point. If you have an issue or a cause or any kind of initiative, bring it up as a discussion item. And if we want to discuss it, we'll say yes, and we'll put it on the agenda, and the next meeting we'll have some background. And, it's just very difficult to get something thrown at you up here during a report and have to make a decision as to whether we want to proceed when we don't even know what we're going to proceed with. The annexation stuff, why would we want to, I'm just thinking here out loud, is why would we want to annex an area of the county that the county's not supporting themselves? Or why would we want to even take it over without even getting the tax revenues from it? It's just there's a whole lot of different things that we don't need to even go into. So just a point of order and a suggestion for the future. I've got a few quick things here. One, Drew, great job with the Relay for Life. Great tournament. I had two fellas that are contractors that do work with me over at the Space Center. Their company's very active in community events. They came down and sponsored a hole. It was basically a sponsored hole, and played with us. One flew down from Tennessee and one from North Carolina. So I really appreciated that, and I'm going to try to send them a letter of some sort of token of our appreciation for them coming down. I did get a letter from AARP, of all people, or it was either AARP or AAA, that they have a grant opportunity. Drew, I don't know if you've got a copy of that. Some sort of life improvement grant, and I suggested maybe we look at something to support pickleball and pickleball activities, which is the third item I have. Tom Willoughby sent a letter, and apparently there's a big increasing interest in this game called pickleball, which I've personally have never seen, but I guess it's a pretty fun game. And there's Tom has requested that we look into that as maybe a budget item to help increase the capacity. I think we have that at the gym.
I think you might be surprised.
Oh, Drew, you got something? Talk to us pickleball.
Well, we currently do have pickleball. We provide it at the gym indoor. And with the grant that we are getting ready to proceed with at Round Lake Park, 3 new tennis courts will have pickleball on all 3 courts. They'll be cross-striped.
Okay.
So we'll actually be able to have 6 courts that will be able to play pickleball on in between. They will give us a total number of courts, 5 courts total at Round Lake. 3 of them will have pickleball availability.
Okay, good deal.
Mayor?
How many pickleball games can occur?
Well, you have 2 teams, so it can be, I think, 4 players.
So pickleball is just a smaller.
You go 2 courts on one court. So they play cross.
2 pickleball courts on one tennis court.
You got to put portable nets
I've
in.
seen YouTube of it. I've never seen the court.
Yeah.
It's a cool game.
Thank you, Chris.
Anything else, Richard? I had a couple other quick items. One is at Calno, I was approached by County Commissioner Lee Constantine, and I never made any commitment or anything, but he mentioned maybe we need to sit down with the county and come up with another joint planning agreement addressing the rural boundary. I said I would bring it forward. We can have staff get with his staff and see if there's any interest, if we have that interest.
We had one. We tried to renegotiate it.
I did.
They told us they didn't want to do it.
I told him one we had expired, so I think he's trying to get out in front of some of the issues that are coming our way. The last thing was a quick letter I got from a friend who works out at
Hang on 1 second, let me just see, is there consensus for Mr. Cobb to talk to the county manager and see? All right, see what the county's thinking, Mr. Cobb, on JPAs.
And the last thing was a friend who works out at the amphitheater almost daily, and she picks up trash out there, and she made the comment that there are very few trash cans out at the amphitheater area. I think they're out on the sidewalks, but she picks up a lot of trash from the nearby Starbucks and Chipotle's, and just made a suggestion. I told her I'd pass it on, that maybe we can put a few trash cans out there, and the folks can do that. So Brian or Drew, maybe you guys can look into that.
More trash cans at Oviedo on the Park. It has
Yeah.
been something that I know has been discussed before.
Okay. Good enough. That's all I got. Thanks.
Mary, before you go to the next one, if I could, the AARP letter.
Yeah.
That grant is, there's a lot of things that you can.
Oh, yeah. I was just giving you a suggestion.
One of the things I asked Mr. Kelly to look into with Mr. Bower and with Mr. Wyatt to see if what projects we have that might be able to slot into, because they have such a wide range
Okay.
of criteria. But so that was one of the things that, and maybe we may come back with more than just pickleball.
Okay. And if I may, I just want to say thanks for the recognition from League of Cities. Much appreciated. Yes, sir.
It is. Yeah, like I said, he was there before I got there. All right, anything else?
That's it.
All right, I'll just be real brief. Councilman Henkin said it perfect before. Our city is in great shape. You know, have there been changes? Yes, there have been changes. Has the city grown and developed into the city it's supposed to be? Yes, it has. Is it going to develop more? Yes, it will. Will the traffic get fixed? When the road's widened, 419, 426, they're working on it. The display that everybody witnessed tonight is the frustration that goes on up here, not only here, but behind the scenes that you all don't ever get to see. The emails that get sent, the constant barraging, the constant questioning of our city attorney, the constant. So what you saw tonight was frustration. And I make no apologies for it, folks. I've served this city well. I go out and I represent every citizen of this city, whether we have a disagreement or not, to the fullest of my ability. I do it all as Councilman Henkin pointed out. Well, I have a full-time job, take care of my mom, help my wife, take care of my kids. So when I get frustrated and I get treated like I'm a child, or I've done something wrong when I've done nothing wrong, I get a little annoyed about that. And I'm going to speak out about it. And, you know, the funny thing is we haven't had actions like this up here for 15 years. You look back 15, 16 years ago and see what the makeup of this council was, you'll connect the dots real quick. So I apologize to everybody who was viewing at home, who had to witness that display, but it's what we live with and have been living with. So I will leave it at that. But I'm glad all the events went off without a hitch this weekend. My daughter, I am very proud of her. She did get her master's degree this weekend in speech pathology. I was out of town since Wednesday. So we are quite proud of her. Going back to get her, actually. She's moving back here.
I covered for you.
Yeah, I knew you had my back. Just, paint the building pink if you want. But, this too shall pass. Bob, I'm sorry, I almost called the meeting. You're up.
This week when I read that, or I guess it was last week, when I read that article, it completely blindsided me. And I was livid. I called Mr. Cobb, and he can attest to that. This has got to stop. We've got important stuff coming down the line that we've got to figure out. We've got budget to take care of. We've got negotiations to take care of. We've got zoning and other items that are important. dealing with, to me, petty stuff like who's going to travel and when are they going to travel, and this ballot initiative was pure when it first got written up. There was nothing impure about it, and it became this cluster. And this has got to stop.
What if we bring it back as just an extension of 4-year terms and we cut out the term limits?
Can I finish?
Bob has the
I'm
floor.
planning
Bob,
this season.
you will speak when you're recognized. He has the floor right now.
I mean, we've got to figure this out. This next 6 months, I don't want to do this every single week. I don't want to do this every single month. You do have good ideas. You're one of the smartest people I know. And I don't know. I just can't figure out why this stuff happens the way it does. And and maybe call me new. I mean, I've only been up here for, a year and a year and a half, something like that. But I sat out there in the audience year after year after year since 2009. And I never remember this kind of stuff happening. And now I'm up here and all this is going down. And I just, newspaper article, anytime a vote doesn't go someone's way, there seems to be a newspaper article or a social media post. Let's work it out and let's deal with it up here and support each other going forward. That's all I got.
With that being said, we have future meeting dates of Monday, May 21st, 6:30 p.m. regular session, Monday, June 4th, 6:30 p.m. regular session, Monday, June 18th, 6:30 p.m. regular session, Monday, June 25th, 6 p.m. we have a budget session. A couple of more dates, Monday, July 2nd, 6:30 p.m. regular session, and then July 16th. So it looks like we've got a busy couple of months coming up. Let's hope that we can get a lot of things done. With all that being said, it's about 8:25. Meeting is adjourned.